Hi guys, this Prezi is going to tell you all the information that we want you to know about how to conduct an interview to get information for your speeches and suites topic and the future article that you're going to write. Please take notes during this presentation. If you want, you can pause the video at any time if it's going too quickly. You can push back and re-listen to something that you didn't quite understand the first time. So you get to kind of control the pace here. But I do want you to be jotting down the notes, the important notes, as you go, because there's a lot of research to support the fact that if you take just a couple notes while you're learning something, your brain has to think about it and process it, and it's going to help you remember it and understand it. So get yourself ready to take notes. You can pause the video if you need to. Get out everything you need to take notes right now. We're going to start with step one, which is the preparation that you need to do before the interview. Okay? So the first thing that we want you to do before an interview is to ask yourself, why am I interviewing this particular person? What specific ideas do I think he or she can contribute to my topic? You might have 2 or 3 or more people that you think you would want to interview who are knowledgeable on the topic that you've chosen. But usually you're not going to ask all of those people the same questions. There should be a particular reason why you picked each of them. They should be able to bring a perspective that the others don't have or that you yourself don't have. So make sure you know exactly why you picked that person and what information you're looking to get out of them. The next step is to craft 3 to 4 interview questions that are designed specifically for this person to get the kind of information that you hope he or she can give. I say 3 or 4 questions because everybody's busy and you don't want to overwhelm them with 17 interview questions and expect that they have nothing to do with their entire day except answer your questions. Keep it focused. You should know exactly why you're interviewing each person, and you should be able to come up with 3 or 4 very specific questions to get at the information only they can give you about your topic. Finally, when you're crafting your questions, avoid yes or no questions. They don't really give you that much to add to your speech. You want to focus instead on questions that start with why or how or any other questions that will get more information out of the person. You want to get them talking. You want them to give you as much information as they can to add to your speech, make it more powerful, more complete. Once you've prepared your interview questions, you need to make an appointment for an interview. It is not acceptable to walk up to a person in the hall and say, hey, can I interview you? Or walk into class with a teacher and walk up to them at the beginning of class and say, can I interview you for my speech? And expect that they're going to drop everything and do it right there. The way to do it is to make an appointment. Now, you can do that in 2 ways. You can make an appointment by email and send an email to the teacher or the peer or the coach or whoever you want and ask them if they would be willing to be interviewed. In the email, you should explain that you are preparing a speech on this particular topic. In the email, you should also explain why you think they would have an interesting perspective that you want to get. Your other alternative would be to ask them in person. It's okay to walk up to somebody in the hall and ask them to make an appointment for an interview. It's just not okay to walk up to them and expect that they can be interviewed by you right away. Okay? So make that appointment and then write it down and remember to be there on time. Now let's talk about conducting the interview. These are the things you need to remember during the interview. There's 2 different ways you can conduct an interview. You could interview the person in real life, or you could interview them over email. So I'm going to start by describing what it should be like if you go and meet with them in person. It's in your best interest to share your interview questions with the person in advance. You can email them the questions ahead of time, or you could hand them a typed copy of your questions. Either way, If the person you're interviewing knows what you're going to ask them in advance, it gives them time to think about the most complete answer. You will get better information out of your interview if they know your questions in advance and it's not a surprise. Think about how detailed your answers are when someone asks you a question on the spot. We all do a better job if we have time to think about it ahead of time. The next thing you should know about your in-person interview is that when you arrive, you should shake their hand and ask him and thank them for meeting with you right off the bat. That's a great way to start, and it sets a good tone for the interview. Lastly, during the interview, when you're asking your questions, it's your responsibility as the interviewer to record your responses accurately. You cannot misquote or misrepresent what someone has said. It's your responsibility to portray their ideas and their words accurately. So there's a couple different ways you can do this in an in-person interview. You could ask their permission to record their voice on your iPad, and then you could go back and listen to that later and type out the quotes. Or if you would prefer, you can take notes as he or she speaks during the interview. Either way, you have got to record exactly what is said. It's your responsibility to get it right. Now, what if you wanted to do an interview over email? Maybe this is a person that you aren't going to be able to see by next Tuesday. So you can send them an email once you've already made your arrangements, they've agreed to do the interview, then you can send it in an email. What I've done here is I've typed up a sample email that you could fill in the blanks. Start off with "Dear" and then put their name. Thank you for agreeing to answer my interview questions. And then remind them of your topic. As you know, I am preparing a speech on the topic of fill in the blank. I'm particularly interested in your thoughts on the following questions. Then you should insert the questions you want them to answer. You should end by giving them a specific deadline. They need to know when you need these by. People are busy. They might see your email and they might say, oh, I'll get to that later. Oh, I'll get to that later. But if you end by saying to them, please respond by Tuesday, February 10th, then you're probably going to get the information you need in time. Again, end by thanking them for their time and sign your name. One benefit to think about doing an email interview is that if you conduct an interview over email, your responses are automatically written for you. You don't have to worry about audio recordings or taking notes while they speak. If you do it over email, then it's already typed, and you might be able to just copy and paste that into your Google Doc for writing your speech. Just one of the perks of email. There's also a nice perk of doing it in person because you might think of other questions based on the way they respond to your question. And if it's an in-person interview, you could ask a follow-up question, whereas it's a little bit more complicated to do that with an email interview. Finally, you need to end your interview with another thank you. Always end the interview by thanking the person for sharing his or her time and their ideas with you, and a firm handshake with eye contact leaves a really good impression. So, to summarize, what's the takeaway message for how to conduct an interview? Be prepared, have your questions written in advance, make an appointment for the interview ahead of time, make sure you're recording your responses accurately throughout the interview. It is your responsibility to use their words correctly, and always remember to say thank you. Follow those steps and you guys are going to do some killer interviews. Now get to it.